All right, guys, I'll do a countdown just so I get a clean cut. We'll go in, and sorry, this is my screen, so I'm going to switch where you guys are. I'll do the countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then Andrew, I'll quickly introduce you, and at some point after 2 slides, introduce all of our panelists, and you guys can chat, and then we'll go straight into the debate, and then we'll have some housekeeping stuff at the end that we'll want to get across. All right. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Welcome everybody to the after-hour session of the Future of Work 2020 Plus Plus. We have just had a webcast on talent, career, and skills with a whole bunch of panelists, and we have a whole bunch of new panelists here. But this is a new format. Myself, Sean Moffitt, and Andrea Cates have introduced. We just want to have a discussion around future of work and hopefully get some leading minds to actually get into maybe some face-offs, maybe some debate, and certainly some insight about the future. I want to introduce Andrea Cates, my fellow partner in crime on all of these webcasts. Andrea, what is your prevailing thought right now?
I think this is probably the most relevant topic in the entire work topic of topics. So I'm excited to get into it.
I love your improv already. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you that, and you gave me the improv answer. So in the true spirit of what this is, just a couple of things and why we're so hyper fixated on future of work beyond the fact it's an important topic. Not a lot of people know about it, and it's made much more complicated by this thing called a pandemic. We actually do have a guild of sorts. We've introduced a global guild of people about 50 plus. If you hear this webcast at any point in the future and go, hey, I might be interested in that, definitely give us a shout at hello@futureproofingnext.com. We'll talk about what it really aims to do at the back half of this webcast. So we just had a webcast on the future of work, and we had people from around the world talk about stuff, and we'd love to get into a kind of roll up your sleeves discussion format here. Here's kind of our infographic. We usually have a hero kind of slide that we introduce on each one of our webcasts. And we're covering off kind of what I would call a third of the onion in terms of future of work. We're going to talk about talent, career, and skills, I'm sure, in future webcasts. And we may even touch upon them today. There'll be the other 5 to 6 parts of the wheel that we'll cover off. And I want to introduce our expert panelists that have been sitting here so patiently waiting to jump in and weigh in on the debate. From left to right, Christine Vandebeek. She's hailing to us from Vancouver today. She's a founder of Effect Change Advisory. She's a people strategy consulting leader, and I'm envious for a couple different reasons. She's worked for a few companies that I absolutely love and adore, and she lives in Vancouver, which is much warmer than it is in Toronto right now, and very interesting. Say hi, Christine.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for that lovely introduction. Looking forward to jamming on the future of work with you.
And this is truly letting your cobweb show as I look at some of the quickly spelling mistakes underneath your title. So, you know, I'll just come out and admit it. This is the format that we're in right now, I suppose, but I apologize on that. Alessandro Rimassa, connecting to us from Milano, kind of at least at some point the lightning rod for kind of this whole pandemic storm that kind of crawled over into Europe. He's a future of work and digital transformation expert. He's co-founder of Talent Garden. Say hi, Alessandro.
Hi, Sean. Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me in this, interesting and very, important topic at the moment, that is future work, and in particular the skills part.
Wonderful. Looking forward to the European perspective too, and continuing in that same vein, although it seems like Mar has worked throughout the world. Guerrero Busquets, head of talent and organizational development for Esment. Also worked at TD, which is, I guess, my current bank in Canada. So I guess there's a small plug for TD right there, but welcome, Mar.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on this webinar, and looking forward to the discussion and learning from you guys and sharing perspectives, lessons learned. So thanks.
And maybe before we get into it, because you have been chosen, not only because you're leaders in the space and know a lot about it, but you also kind of tackle it from 3 different angles. Maybe give us just the 20 seconds of kind of what your day-to-day life professionally is and how it may impact this topic. Maybe Christina, if you could just give us some background to what you do and how it orientates itself around future work.
Absolutely. So the focus for me is really working with VPs and executives to future-proof their orgs through technology, org design, and also strategy. And you know, since we're in this pandemic, the past has really been kind of shifting them into a world of big data, AI, social impact, looking at kind of cloud-based technologies. But since the pandemic has hit, you know, it's more of a kind of essentialism and really focus on how do we deliver the basics stunningly well and use technology, org design, and strategy to do that.
Excellent. Well, very tight too. Like I think you've made that preamble at some point recently with some of your clients. Alessandro, your take on it. We were just talking before the webcast. You got this interesting blend of skill sets that I don't oftentimes see. So your take on the future work.
The point for me on future work is that I'm trying to help the HR community in Italy and C-level to redesign their companies. The point is that if we want to attract new talents, and particular all the talents that develop new skills from developers to UX designer, technologists, we must redesign the way we work, we must redesign the work environment, and we must put at the center people, not just the technology. So I'm, after 10 years in education, in designing new path to learn new skills, now I'm helping companies to, attract these kind of talents.
Wonderful. I think you've got a friend in Andrea on that one in terms of returning back to work. We rail against all these back to work people that are trying to figure out how to take your 6-foot desk and make it 12 foot just so you're further away from the next person beside you. And that's kind of the return to work post pandemic, which I think is minimizing maybe how much change is ahead of us. And then Mar, just mention kind of your background, your orientation, future work, and certainly the work that Esment does as well.
Yeah, sure. So my background is it really spans marketing and HR. So I started off in marketing in banking in London, in working for Barclays in the UK. And I've moved around, as you said at the start, Sean. I do like to learn about different cultures. And so I moved to Germany, Brussels. And in the last few years, I've been back in Spain. So I think my work has really been about engaging whether customers and prospects or employees and candidates. And throughout this experience, what I've seen is that really the future of work is now. We always think that the future is ahead of us, and it really is happening now. Things are accelerating, change is accelerating. And we need to tap into the collective intelligence to be able to be ready. And it doesn't matter whether you're a private company, a multinational, a tiny non-for-profit, or somewhere in the public sector. I think we all need to work together and in order to be ready for what's coming in and what's happening already now. And
really good point.
You asked about Esment. So Esment is actually a non-for-profit where I work. I've worked for the last 4 years. It's a very small but innovative company.
Wonderful. No, I love your point about the future is now. I tends to come out of my mouth quite often, like, the problem with future of work sometimes is you never get there. It's always out there in the future. So I'm glad that we've got a very present motive behind this. All right, are we ready to debate maybe? Are we ready to put up our boxing gloves or maybe collaborate? We'll see. We've got a number of different debate topics we'd love to go through about the future of work. And to be fair to our panelists, I may actually ask Andrea first to weigh in on one of them. Certainly, we've seen a range of different articles about the pandemic being horrible and it's going to lead to structural unemployment, to maybe it's not so bad, remote work is not so bad after all, to wow, this is a one-time opportunity to actually rechange and reframe how we do things. Andrea, which camp are we in here? Is a pandemic, short of all the health and economic issues that we have, is this 5 years out net a good thing for the future of work, bad or indifferent?
I think short term, it's absolutely a horrible disaster. And one of my favorite phrases is Debbie Downer. I have this Debbie Downer feeling that we've forgotten to mention that we've all been through death. We've all witnessed our neighbors feeling fearful. We've all experienced grief, and it's unexpressed. At least I live in the United States. There's kind of a political side to many things. So I think in the short term, this massive unemployment and uncertainty has been completely understated. And I think that that's ill-advised, because I don't know that we can move forward well into the next phase without a bit of Debbie Downer. So hate to say that. Now, the rational optimist that you and I are, Sean, says that we can't not grieve. We can't not acknowledge this moment. And I think putting it under the rug is wrong. However, I think that we will be forced to think about all kinds of things, the haves and the have-nots, the notion of what a job really is, the feeling of what are we as humans? Are we here to be productive all day, or figure out some basic needs and then be creative all day? So I would say short term, total Debbie Downer, completely fearful that we've understated the impact. And a couple of years from now, probably more optimistic than I've been that we will be phoenixes that rise from these ashes.
Now, I've got 4 different pandemic debates here. I'll ask my panelists, you can either choose something on the board. This is almost like Family Feud, where you can choose something on the board, or you can just choose your own debate topic. I'm not biased anyway, so I'll ask Alessandro first, just things that I've thought deeply about. Will unemployment kind of rebound, or will it be structurally there? Will the workplace become more traditional yet again? We'll go back to our offices, or will it become much more flexible and remote in the future? Will automation keep going steady at its current pace, or will it be accelerated by all this? And will the workplace become more cutthroat and competitive as people vie for all these jobs, or will it be more equitable and inclusive? Do you care to take one of the positions on this debate, Alessandro, or just choose one of your own around what the pandemic is going to do to us?
I mean, looking at this slide, I think that the workplace will be definitely, more flexible, and remote work will be part of our lives. Not remote work, the same remote work that we had in this couple of months, but something different. And I would like to say that the workplace will be more inclusive, but I'm not sure about that. And the point is that automation will be accelerated. I'm definitely sure about that.
Yeah, it is amazing, just as I see pretty much technology neophytes go from, can 4 people help me run this WebEx or do this Zoom, to now they're pretty comfortable with it. It's almost seeing learning in real time, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, many people are saying that the most important thing in digital transformation was not the CEO or the CIO, but was COVID-19. And that's true. And that's a good point, especially in Europe and South Europe, in which digital transformation was something definitely far from us. It's good, but it's good then if we use technology to put people at the core of transformation. That's the point for me.
Bravo, I agree. X gets the square. Christine, and you want to weigh in on any of these debates? Take a hard line view on one side or the other?
Yeah, I'd love to. You know, automation is one that's close to my heart, like it is for most of you. What I would say to Alessandro's point is, yeah, for sure, we've seen just a rapid adoption of digital tools, particularly in the communication and collaboration space. So where we've been nudging companies and organizations for years to adopt these new technologies, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, etc., all of a sudden, bam, it happened in 2 weeks. Now, what is really the next frontier here is for organizations that are looking to kind of manage their costs, do their work more efficiently, is to hunt down those transactional costs, those manual workarounds, where you've got forms that's really indicative of a process that could potentially be automated, and where we can actually better leverage our talent to deliver more value to our stakeholders and our clients.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how it really hits the road. The rubber hits the road in terms of how people are digesting what's just happened, and how we had somebody in the healthcare profession on a webcast two webcasts ago saying how essentially healthcare was delivered 98% in a real live universe, and now within a 4-week span of time, the complete chart is flipped, where almost only 2% of it's kind of being delivered kind of in a live setting, which means you got to automate real quickly. Like as Andrea always says, like you change the tire as the car is running on the road. So, Mar, what's your pandemic stoic point of view here?
Okay, so I'm more towards the right-hand side here, and I'll probably just add something to what Alessandro said, which was, I think you said you're not sure about whether or not the workplace will be more inclusive, although you'd like it to be. I'm going to bet it will, because what does the workplace depend on? It depends on leaders, right? Leaders create cultures, leaders create the priorities for the organizations, and I think both as consumers and as employees, we care a lot about the company that we buy from and the company we work for. And therefore, I think these will be our expectations, that the workplace is more inclusive and more equitable.
Now, I've surfaced 4 debates. There may be one that I haven't surfaced here. Is there's something in your mind that you're going, wow, you know what? I've thought deeply about this, and either I don't know which way it's going, or I either fear or like the way it's going. Is there something that isn't on my pandemic list that you've been thinking about, saying things will change and it's going to change this way? And I'll just open it up to anybody. This doesn't have to be sequential.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, something that's been on my mind, Sean, is as we look at your second one on the list, and you've given us a lot to riff off of here, but if we think about kind of flexibility in the workplace, and there's been so much talk about the gig economy, and I think a big question out there is whether or not whether or not we will see kind of more gig work going into the future. What I'm really sensing as we've kind of been in the grips of C-19 is that there is kind of more of a mutual commitment between employees and employers. And I'm seeing that kind of take shape in multiple ways in both the compassion that's exhibited by CEOs, in people coming to the employee-employer relationship with more of a, how can we help each other survive, rather than what can you do for me? So, where I'm really sitting on the fence here is, yes, there's going to be more flexibility in work, but I don't necessarily know that we're going to see kind of this exponential increase in gig work, and whether or not we might see more of a pendulum swing to where we see more of a kind of long-term collaborative commitment between employees and employers.
It is interesting. I'm taking it in a different direction too. It's like, I thought the workday might collapse to be a smaller workday. Like there'll just be more computers, more tech, allowing us to be more productive. So therefore our workdays become shorter. One of my fears is we've brought it all home with us, and work gets done. I'm finding myself, my sleep patterns are off, but it shouldn't be new to me, but like just how work and personal life becomes inextricably kind of linked, and that work happens at 10 o'clock at night after you've done something with somebody or whatever. So I don't know if anybody has that same thought, that the work days kind of become shapeless now.
I mean, listening to what you're saying now, Sean, I think that's we must introduce a new concept that is not anymore the work-life balance, but it's the life balance, considering the work as part of life and not just life versus work. Because I mean, changing the way we manage our days and at the end of the day, we manage the way we do all the work we have, we must consider that life is just one, and we have work that is probably super important at the beginning of the career, and then it changes, I mean, season by season, 10 years by 10 years. And we must, I mean, finding the right mix. That is something that is true for everyone, for each of us, considering that putting people at the core, putting people at the center of this way of redesigning the work in the companies means understanding the uniqueness of the single person, and so listening to the different needs. So for me, I mean, from the pandemic, we must, I mean, looking at the future of work and the future of companies and the future of people, understanding the differences between people and changing also the way we manage people. So having a new way of managing that starts from listening and goes to have a real life balance.
Wow, I'm looking at Andrew right now. We've had more calls at either 5 a.m. in the morning or 2 a.m. in the morning, being 3 hours away from each other. I like this life balance Alessandro talks about. Is this even possible? And I do like the reframing that, I mean, implicit, I think, in what Alessandro says too, is hopefully you enjoy your work, right? Because if they're twinning with each other, yeah. So, Andrea, I don't know if you have thoughts on life balance or.
Yeah, you know, we did a project last year that was about work life. You know, this blending of work life, and I think there's another. I really like what you said, Alessandro. I think there's another level to this that I've experienced personally during pandemic, which is I can't unremember the dog that I see walk through this client's room, or the husband that walks by in a hoodie. And I'm like, I didn't know you had a husband. You know, toddlers walking through scenes. I can't literally unsee that or unremember that. And before, it's kind of a metaphor for me, because it used to be, well, I didn't see that, right? Like that was in parentheses. That was kind of deleted. But now it's like we're all seeing this, except for the people that cheat with the Zoom backgrounds that make them look like they're in a palace. I mean, we literally, in some ways, I like this notion of what you were saying about compassion and commitment, because once you've seen where someone lives and you understand, what I'm seeing is, somebody had this great line the other day. It used to be work-life balance, and we did work life and all this, you know, clever ideas and all the Adam Grant stuff and, you know, work life. But what we're saying is, it used to be that you would work from home. Now we are living at work a lot of our day, and that's never happened to most people. You know, like living at work, you know, usually you don't have your puppy and your toddlers and homeschooling and your in-laws living with you because they're at risk and all of this other stuff that you left at home to work. And I think that's really, I haven't processed what's going to happen, but as I said, I can't unremember that. So, you know, every time I see these clients now from these, you know, big corporations with their big desks and their, you know, all of that, but I'll remember, yeah, well, you have a 5-year-old. You know, like even Jimmy Fallon, you know, the guy who has the talk show. I love his daughters. They're like hilarious. They you know, he does his show on his iPhone. It's very homespun. And I'm not sure I ever need to see network television again.
Here's one for you, Andrea. Somebody said the other day that in the future, having an office that isn't in your home will be viewed as a perk or as a, you know, not a necessary, but if you have that, oh, you must be doing well in your venture or your life or your career. I don't know, like it's an
yeah. They say that work is good. That's going to be like a status symbol to have an office, which I think is hilarious. Here's what I think. I think that, so by the way, we are putting it out there that we want to work with companies like IKEA because we believe that there is this thing called a Zoom cart where you create like backgrounds, microphones, and lighting rings that you can literally just kind of bring with you, you know, wherever you go. And it's a kind of furniture. It has a, you know, we want them to invent this, a desk that you can stand at or sit at. It can have a treadmill attached. And that's kind of all the square footage that you need. And by the way, it's always 6 feet from anybody else in your universe. So we're only mildly kidding about it, but we think that that's the kind of thinking that's going to come next.
Oh my Lord, this offends the Apple principle of do one thing well, right? You want everything in a chair, all features, right? So yeah. Mar, weigh in here. What either on the discussion we're having or what are you considering an outcropping here?
So I think I actually agree with everything you were saying, and I'll just share something with you. I think working from home has just been jump started in Spain, because in the last few years, only about 5% of the workers would work from home, even though Spain is the country with the highest fiber to the home penetration rate in Europe. So although we've had the technology supporting working from home, the culture wasn't there. The culture was still encouraging people to be physically present in the workplace. So that's a great example of how the digital transformation is as much about people and culture as it is about technology. But I think also it's been very intense because we've all been in crisis management for the last few weeks, right? Since it all started. I think as things go back to normal slowly, these will also become a bit more normal. So working from home won't mean you're on the calls all the time, every day, 24/7. I think people just need to switch off, and it's necessary actually also to become more creative, to have time to just do nothing, right? And so I think this is a very specific and intense period, but it doesn't always have to be this way. Working from home can mean something else.
Yeah, that's an interesting reframing. I'm always curious to know whoever started inventing offices and businesses that you had to go to, right? Given 40-minute commutes and the like. All right, we did set up the expectation that we're not only just going to talk pandemic, we're going to talk about skills, talents, and careers. We might have been able to have this discussion back in December when pandemic wasn't a topic, or it may have influenced your point of view. I had 4 different debate areas. Christine, we'll start with you on this one. Just you can pick any of them or go off the board. Artificial intelligence, it's good. It gets rid of all the routine work, and we'll be able to be in charge of it. Or no, we're really going to work for it. It's going to control us. I know we just talked about talent being kind of more gigged and open versus hired. Diversity, will we be more inclusive? Will it be you still have a glass ceiling? And the workforce, there's something, I heard a stat today, something like there's still 75 million jobs that are out there that need to be filled. And the challenge is people aren't qualified to fill them. So what is it? We're going to have a well-adapted, well-proportioned workforce, or we're going to be completely mismatched for the future. So take one of those, or take one of your own in terms of the talent debate.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for the invitation, Sean and Andrea. Artificial intelligence, I think I've spoken a little bit about digital transformation and the next frontier really being hunting down those transactional costs. I think we have such a long runway here that, I don't think there's any immediate risk of being displaced. If I think about the organizations that I work with, including kind of in global retail, many of the public sector organizations, the runway for AI and for digital transformation is really endless. And I think there's going to be a real demand for folks to kind of demonstrate that they are ready to kind of see the opportunity for transformation, be able to source the right technology, be able to influence acquisition and adoption of that digital technology. So I think, that leads me really naturally into the last one. And I know you didn't invite me to take 2, but I almost have to here. So if you think about the workforce, the question is, if those are the skills that we really need here, whose responsibility is it to really make sure that this upskilling and reskilling of the workforce happens? And what I would really argue here is that it is really incumbent upon the workforce themselves to take on that responsibility. If you look at what is available to us in open source through MOOCs, through endless opportunities to learn through social learning, formal learning. I mean, the world is our oyster in terms of reskilling. And I see more and more of younger generations, my generation, older generations, taking this as their own personal responsibility to reskill. What the real challenge here is going to be for employers and for executives is to track the upskilling and reskilling that their employees and candidates are taking on themselves so that they can fully utilize the skill sets that they have at their disposal.
I got just a quick follow up there. Like, I know I've been dealing a little bit with blockchain and the notion that you should have certifications on things and they should be able to travel across borders, and you should be able to assert that, I guess for yourself, that you've actually taken this course and you're trained in this. And for an employer, they should be able to look at your blockchain thing and say, yes, that's a reputable school and that is a reputable record that says you've done it. Is that the future?
Gosh, yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be more transparency all around. So transparency when it comes to credentials and qualifications, transparency when it comes to performance, pay. I think we are walking into a future that is transparent, more transparent from both sides, both the employer side and the employee side. So for sure, I do think that's the future. Now, that doesn't necessarily need to be based in really kind of a suspicion or a guardedness towards one another, but more of you know, we are mutually committed to building a future together, and we are going to do what it takes and demonstrate our commitment towards that by being transparent about our credentials, about our qualifications, our pay, our performance, and our financials if we're a corporation or another type of organization. Great question.
I must be letting my Gen Xness show, because I'm good on everything you just said except for transparency of pay. I still remember being in my 20s going, I'm not going to tell my salary to the cubicle mate beside me. Like, that's horrible. Like, this should be under a kind of cloak and dagger here. So maybe I'm old. I'm not too sure. I hope I'm not.
Oh gosh, and you know what? I've got to riff off of that for a minute, Sean, because what I challenge us both on is perhaps that is a perspective that is Canadian. If you walk into some other cultures, you know, one of the first questions that can be asked in a conversation is what you do and how much you earn. So let's challenge ourselves on that and see where the future takes us.
Great. Well, okay, this is a good pivot then to Mark, because you've got at least 4 continents you've either been or worked on or been around. What's your global perspective on the future of talent here, Mark?
Well, I think all of these topics are really interesting and they're all related to some extent. But one thing I would say, given that in the last few weeks there's been so much on e-learning, right? Everybody has some e-learning platform or is sharing sort of webinars or some other groups online to learn and develop, etc., etc. I think the fact that there is a lot, it doesn't mean that it's all good. And by that, I mean that it has come a point where I think we need to think about learning as something that we integrate with change management. So learning should not be about acquiring knowledge. It should be about changing behaviors. So as a student, I need to know how going through this course will make me acquire new skills that I can apply when I go back to work, right? And that's the way we need to think. And I see still far too many courses where you just sit passively there and someone is just talking at you with no interaction, no engagement, no practical side of the content. So I think this is really important. So in order for the workforce to be more adaptable and better prepared, they have to have this lifelong learning mindset. But we as organizations, we need to also have the responsibility to create a good learning environment, a learning culture which also means making it easy for people to unlearn, right? Because it's as important as learning nowadays. To let go of habits and ways of doing things that now data is allowing us to question, right? Data, the good thing about data and technology is that it's allowing companies to see what blind spots they might have. And by doing so, it's helping accelerate learning and help the workforce be better prepared.
So good. I love the point about unlearning. I'm going to ask Alessandro, because as much as we're all experts here, you ran a thing called Talent Garden. So you got to know something about talent, I figure. So what's your take on the future of talent?
The point of the future of talent for me is that talent will be geeked and open when adaptable and well positioned. Or, I mean, the problem, the risk is that talent will be hired and closed, and at the same time mismatched and prepared. So not anymore talent. The real point is, as Mar said before, is that we must have learning organization that I mean help us learning to unlearn, learning to learn, learning to teach. Because the problem is that many times we have organizations that once they hire people, they stop nurturing these people. And so you pass from being a talent to being just a worker to being someone that is not anymore able to work. And so the risk is that, I mean, the best talents are gig and open because they are, I mean, continuously update, and they don't want to go in a company in which they stop learning. So what's the focus here? The focus is on the C-level of the companies and how they decide they want to shape the future of their companies. And so someone that's, I mean, like a discussion between the CEO and the chief HR officer, with the chief HR that is saying, oh, let's invest money in training for these people. And the CEO asks, okay, but then if they decide to go away from the company, what happens? And the chief HR answer, if we don't invest money in training them and then they decide to stay in the company, what happens?
Yeah.
So for me, that's the point. I think that the future of talent will be both on gig and open and hired and closed. But I mean, the talents will be hired by companies that invest in the future of their talents.
Interesting stuff. I got so many follow-ups, but it's even in a conversation format. We'll not even cover off most of the debate. Andrea, give me your like 15-second epitaph on talent here before we move on to skills. Oh, Andrea, you might be muted.
So we were talking the last session about who owns the talent, and the fact is, it used to be you were locked in as talent. So in parents' generation, grandparents' generation, you got a job and the company owned you. You're a company guy, right? You're a company man. And that is so different now. And I liked what Alessandro was just saying, like, so what do you do about that? Knowing that everybody's nimble, nobody's going to be, quote, loyal for life. But I think that what that means is that this feeling of constantly knowing that it's in everyone's interest to see something that needs to be incorporated into a skill or a talent, get it into the DNA of the people and the organization, and keep it going, whether your search replacing the individuals or not, because the talent, you know, if they're great, they're going to be the first to find another job or not. That's just the basics. I remember when, I'm going to say this, even though I'm dropping names, but I remember when HP took over Compaq years back, and we were doing projects with Compaq at the time, and someone said, oh, well, you know, we shouldn't do anything to retain these people, just let them go. Well, who were the first people that could go? The ones with the most talent. And so then what do? You know, the risk is you're stuck with the worst people because they're the ones that weren't able to go anywhere. So I think it's exactly what Alessandro just said, that it's good. There's nothing but goodness that comes from keeping talent really on the cutting edge of learning, and also what was said earlier by Mar and also Christina, that the way you get that knowledge or skill is not like, I've got a certificate, therefore I know Python. You know, it's a lot more maker experiential.
Agree. We're in unanimous agreement. Danger of groupthink here. Hopefully we'll get into a juicy debate here somewhere. Skills and learning, and I'm going to ask, we go more staccato on this because we got even careers behind this. This is such a volume subject. We could do a full day on this, Andrea. Maybe we should. Mar, you got first crack at this. Skills in the future, it'll be more traditional. Actually, we've already covered workplace. So the skills in demand, more specialists, more generalists. Learning will remain early life, schools, you know, whoever, or lifelong learning. And responsibility, I think we've already brought this up as well. Who's responsible for reskilling and learning? Is it education, institutions of government, or is it business and not-for-profits? Take your pick, go off the board.
Right, okay. So I will go with the learning will be sort of perpetual, lifelong. I do believe strongly in this. I think it's a must. We cannot afford not to be learning throughout our lives, and learning from, you know, different experiences, different projects. We have more than ever before the opportunity to participate in cross-functional teams, in cross-industry groups. We actually even collaborate with competitors. So and people are more willing to, you know, to have a career path that is not necessarily promotion within the same organization. You know, a career path will be a collection of experiences. So I think learning will be forever, really. That, you know, that, and having like a curious mind, I think, are skills that we certainly value when it comes to recruiting people, and we try to foster within the organization with you know, little things, little habits. From when you finish a project, you actually never finish it unless you do a session where you reflect on what's gone well, what hasn't gone so well, you know, what could we have done better, what are the lessons that we have learned and will apply in the next opportunity. And things like lunch and learn sessions, so you can learn from other people in other departments, or from someone who's been off on a conference or something, and they want to share what they've learned and how it applies to this workplace, to these organizations. So I think we need to think in HR. Part of our role in people and culture is really creating that sort of learning organization, learning culture. And it goes from not just providing the best courses, but providing the best environment where people feel safe to fail, as long as they extract some learning from it and they're willing to apply it. Also in terms of college management as well, right? So a big part of it is not just about organizing and having classified all the things that the company knows, but also what's in people's heads and what we're learning on a day-to-day basis, right? So questioning ourselves, be open, be humble, to be, create a team and engage a team of people that are better than you, because no one can know everything. So we really need to collaborate. We need to play on our strengths, and we need to complement each other within and outside of the organization.
I love you're on a piece about just, I guess I'd call it institutionalized learning, right? Like it's not only learning within a project, but having the company kind of have all those experiences with so much turnover and maybe even gig economy. Who will be the stewards of learning within companies, and like how is that readily accessible? Because my fear is with everything online, you know, everything's accessible, but nothing's really, you know, turning into either insight or decision because there's just too much. So back in my old P&G days, we used to have these big binders we would carry around to all of our meetings, and they essentially were the Bible according to your brand. And as stupid as it was, there was actually some real good benefit to knowing what the business review from 6 years ago on your business was, strangely enough. So
yeah, I would just actually add to that one little thing. I want to thank you and Andrea for the work you do. Those of us who are passionate about the future of work and we follow you, you're doing us a huge favor because you're able to curate content to separate the noise from what's really valuable to create knowledge yourself. So it's fantastic. And I think that is what we need because there's just so much information, so much noise that everyone, employees, can be easily distracted, right? So one of the skills that are really valuable going forward is to be able to focus. The ability to focus in a world full of distractions is really important.
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm blushing, so thank you for that. I think Andrea is blushing too in her San Francisco tan that she's got here. And in the spirit of focus as well, I'm going to ask Christine, Alessandro, and Andrea, give me your 20 seconds on skill, so we can. This is we're in the fourth quarter of the match right now, so let's see. Give me a soundbite, Alessandro, in terms of where skills are going.
I think that, I mean, speaking of work skills, the point is learning will be lifelong. I love this word perpetual, because the point is that we must go on learning different things. And so skills in demand will be more generalist if we, observe a lifelong period, and will be more specialist if we observe just like a couple of years. But more specialist for a couple of years, that is something different from the next couple of years, because everything is changing so fast and continuously. I mean, digital transformation is not something with a big event and then a definite change, but it's a sum of an infinite number of small events. And so we must go on, changing our skills. And the point is that where is the responsibility? The responsibility in providing education is from the education institutes, the government, but then the responsibility for learning is within the business. Because as you said before, and as Mar especially explained, the noise is super loud, and we have a lot of content. I don't think that the Netflix of learning is something useful. It's something definitely unuseful, because we need learning experiences that are, totally connected to the business and, to the way we must use those skills. So the responsibility is within the business and within the people that must be trained.
So good. Wow. I feel like kind of singing a tune based on what you're saying. Christine, just a quickie on this one.
Yeah, I'm 100% aligned with Alessandro's point about it really resting in the business and nonprofit. And what I'd call up here is just a model that's really familiar to you around the 70-20-10 principle on learning. This 70% of the most effective learning really happens in role on the job, whereas kind of the least effective is really that formal learning that we would see over on the left side of the equation here. So 100% aligned, I do see the responsibility. And what I would just add to that right side is personal responsibility of employees, in addition to businesses kind of creating the space and nonprofits creating the space for that learning to happen in role from peers, and then also broad sourcing any opportunities that are available to us online.
I know it's horrible to say too, Christine, but the pandemic has certainly eaten into business conferences, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think when I look at, send somebody away for 3 days to a conference to learn, and they get a lot of good swag, and the speakers on stage, and I think myself and Andrea rail at this all the time, leave you with no practical takeaway to come back to Monday morning at work, right? It's just, so as much as I'm shooting myself in the foot, maybe. All right, we'll have to go real quick on this just to wrap up. But career debates, more gig versus hired. Will boomer values continue? Will it be more kind of future generations or later, earlier, younger generations? One thing that I have, we're having a discussion about people that are in thought jobs, white collar workers, gray collar workers. If I'm a truck driver right now, am I really feeling good about technology? And what happens to this universe of people that, you know, if you're in a skill set that takes 3 seconds to do something, technology is probably going to replace it. So where is your value in life then? So I'd be curious in your thoughts there. The workday we've talked about, and, you know, they say, I think I've seen some stat, and I don't know who came up with the information. It's one of these little urban myths that the average kind of student coming out of school will have 14 jobs in their lifetime. So you'll have to weigh in on this. It's either more or less than 14 jobs. I don't want you sitting on the fence at all. I've made it like that. And then I'll throw a fun one in. We came up in the last discussion, Italian guy, actually, Alessandro. So I'll be interested in your answer here. Is the F word in the workplace a swear word? There's your fun thing. Can you use the F word? Probably not all the time, but can you use it occasionally and for emphasis, and it still be okay? So take any of those, and I guess we're back to you, Alessandro.
I will try to say that talent will be 50% gigged and 50% hired, and the generational values will be totally radically new. So Generation Z or Generation Alpha, but something different we experienced in the past. Technology for sure will eliminate horrible jobs and will create a new, jobs based on our brains. And the workday will be, the workday must be shorter and wellness based, but it will be a long, long, long battle. And the new worker will have, I would say, the right number of jobs. I don't know if more or less than 14.
You
but,
have to.
I mean,
that's my only rule on this. You have to.
Yeah. probably you have to say more than 14, more than 20, but it depends. Everything will change so fast that I don't know. But the point is that the workday must be shorter and the values must be radically new.
Good. And I noticed that you stick handled around the F word use. So I'm guessing maybe it's yes.
Yes.
All right. Just and maybe for the shortness of time, just choose one of these for anybody else that wants to weigh in here. Any thoughts, Mark, Christine, Andrea?
Yeah, I'll jump in if that's okay. I'm, again, like before, more towards the right-hand side. So hard talent will be hard, closed. Generational values will be, that's the only one actually I would say I'm in the middle. I don't think they'll be new. I think always people have valued values. It's just that because of transparency, trust is the currency now, and that's why it kind of becomes more visible. But I think values have always been there, and people are engaged by leaders with values. And then, yeah, technology will definitely create jobs. It's just a question of us being able to work out how to complement each other, including all the technology advances. And in terms of the workday, will probably be shorter. Well-being is important. And as I said before, creativity is one of the skills we need for the future or for now. And hence, it's important to keep that balance. And the last thing, the new worker will have probably more than 14 jobs in a lifetime. The challenge for companies is how can we make sure that we provide opportunities for talent to have those 14 jobs, if not 14, maybe a part of it within the company without having to leave the company, right? So that's me.
Okay, and Christine, let's. I'm gonna make you do it quick, just because we're gonna have to wrap this up shortly. So.
Absolutely. Well, you know what, I've been aligned along the right for most of these. The one that I'll pause on is just the Boomer versus Gen Z generational values. There's a time and a place for each, and I think particularly in crisis we see that. And you know, the one I'll just weigh in on quickly is the F-bomb. Like, look, there's nothing like someone dropping an F-bomb in a moment of heat that helps you kind of see them as a human and develop some trust with them. So I say it's not out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't use it much, but a well-placed F-bomb, when even some of the best books that are out on bookshelves now actually refer to F words or S words or whatever. So I think it may be not a swear word anymore. Andrea, any comments on swear words or anything else?
Well, I like the fact that the initials for future-proofing next are FN. I rest my case. It's subtle. It's there. Yeah. I have one. I have one.
Work, don't we?
Yeah, it's effing amazing. So I have one quick thing, which is that I'm amazed that the depth of experience of everyone on the panel today still, brought so many new thoughts. I thought that I had thought every thought there was around future of work, and I have found some incredible red threads that I want to follow up on. And I think the last thing that I want to say is this idea of where we get our learning. I mean, what are we learning, right? And so it feels to me like the big mashup for me is if you're trying to learn something that used to be linear, like someone said, the Netflix for learning is like the last thing we need. I'm going to think about that a lot because I agree, but I haven't quite figured out what that might look like. But I think you're right. We need a model for the model.
Well, that's a good way to wrap up kind of our debate moments here. My panel's been spot on. I'd love to disagree with a lot of them. On this list, I think the 24/7 one, I might take task with. I think the day will be shorter for everybody, but when you do your day is going to be quite different. And so it's going to be a 24/7 world, and I'm going to decide I'm going to work from 2 a.m. to 9 a.m., and that's going to be okay. So anyway, I could be wrong, though. We've got a couple of future podcasts coming up. We do these every couple of weeks. And I don't know, I think, what do you guys think of today as panelists? Because we may introduce this after hours thing for all of our webcasts in future. Is it, I don't know, you'll have to, who was on the webcast earlier? Mara, were you on the webcast earlier?
I was a part of it.
This kind of feels like it's got a different vibe, right? Like a little bit more casual. Yeah.
It's definitely less formal. It's fun to be on it, and well, thank you for the opportunity to learn from you guys.
All right. We got a newsletter. I think in our next newsletter, this will have a fairly prominent place on it. I think it's future of work themed. We got a book coming out, myself and Andrea. We delayed it for the pandemic, but we can't delay anymore. It has to be revealed. So coming up May 25th. And also, and this is open to the panelists as well as other people listening, we've got an open forum guild trying to make sense of the world. We've got people that are techies, people that are in politics, people that are academia, and they're all weighing in on what the future looks like on whatever this next normal is going to look like. So join us if you want to at hello@futureproofingnext.com. And like I said, we also have this other guild called the Future of Work that is working with the intent of producing a document that makes some of the stuff that we've talked about very, very clear. And this is why people said they wanted to join us and what they thought they were bringing to the table. And I'll zip through that. We're a community, we're foresights, we're engagements. I didn't want to spend too much time. I want to thank our panelists yet again, delivering your A game as we start to wane, probably, right, Andrea? We've been going for the last 4 hours online. But thank you, Christine. Thank you, Alessandro and Mar. And we will be posting this up in a couple of days. So, Andrea, I'll let you, I closed out the last one. I'll let you close out this discussion.
Always more to think about, and always look forward to seeing everyone in the future, which we know is now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much. It was really an interesting conversation.
Thank you, Alessandro.